After the very long weekend, politicians coming back to work, for those who want to call politics work, will find their in tray right at the top. Very disturbing, very urgent, the NADCO report. You can be very sure in the corridors of power, within the high and the mighty and the powerful, their biggest headache right now is the NADCO report. And you really don't have to believe me. But why is the NADCO report a headache? Why should it be a concern of government? Excellent question. Now we know the NADCO report is a negotiated document. Negotiations that emerged after a number of Kenyans lost their lives. Innocent Kenyans in the maandamanos of early 2023, early last year. And we also know, there are a lot of things with the NADCO report, but the things that excite Kenyans so much is not even the reconstitution of the IEBC, which is key on the road to having free and fair and verifiable elections in the country called Kenya in the future. Kenyans are not concerned about that. They're mainly concerned about opening the servers of the 2022 general elections, especially the presidential elections. Most Kenyans will also know that the current crisis in government has been triggered by somebody who went to court and got a court injunction putting a halt to opening the servers, auditing the 2022, especially presidential elections, which on the surface of things should be very good news for the UDA regime, because a vast majority of Kenyans know exactly what is inside those servers, and Kenyans have evidence. Why would you want to keep servers shut? Why would you want to block access to servers that will show you have won the elections? Why would you want to do that? Unless, of course, you lost the elections. Then it makes perfect sense to block access to those servers, which, by the way, is unconstitutional. Anyway, this should be good news for the government. So why are people running around? Why did the government find it necessary to get Kimani Ichung'wah to speak and reassure the nation that the NADCO report is going to be fully implemented? What? Strange, isn't it? Very strange, isn't it? Maybe even bizarre. It doesn't make sense. Well, for those who have been following me, especially over the last few weeks and days, that should not come as a surprise. None of those fellows should be surprised that this is a crisis for the UDA government. But in case you still don't have any idea, don't worry. Don't fuss. I'll break it down and explain in great detail so that it's clear very shortly. But first of all, I want us to tackle what went wrong. Okay? Because in my opinion, this is the crux of the problem with the government and the UDA regime. Okay? The mantra within UDA is brilliant quick fix ideas. Brilliant quick fix ideas to fix the slide of the Kenya shilling against the dollar. Brilliant quick fix ideas to fix the opposition over the opening of the servers. Brilliant quick ideas on how to bring down fuel prices and at the same time make a fortune by slicing off a percentage from every liter of fuel Kenyans purchase. Brilliant quick fix ideas on how to bring unga prices down. And I can go on and on. Now we know all those ideas failed miserably. And bila kizungu mingi, it is the way of shortcut ideas. Okay? Even in whatever you're doing, if you're relying on brilliant quick fix ideas, and even if you've succeeded so far, beware. The time is coming when kitaumana. That is the nature of this life. But let us stay on topic. Now, when you're in a party where this is the culture, the way to get ahead is to actually implement one of these ideas. Even without seeking audience with your leader first, you decide to implement it, so that when it works, you can go and present it and say, you see what I did? You see? This is what I did. I fixed as a meal. The servers will not be open. And then you get shocked when your party leader goes berserk. You do not understand when you get a reaction very different from the one you expected, because you were expecting a smile and a pat on the back and maybe an appointment, a big appointment to a big office. Oh, pole sana. Folks, the information I have currently suggests to me that this is precisely what happened with the recent move to halt the opening of the servers via the NADCO report, which is now in Parliament being implemented. In other words, some sycophant thought they were helping UDA, but actually they're sinking UDA big time. And it is important to note that this kind of blunder does not always happen with overzealous sycophants who do things without consulting you. From the examples I've given, you will have noticed that many mistakes have been made with authorization from the highest office within the UDA party, and indeed the nation called Kenya. And they went terribly wrong. You see, the nature of politics is complex. So much so that people who know it all in politics, people who cannot be advised, people who cannot take counsel in politics, end up cutting their own feet, end up destroying themselves. Because in the past, in Kenyan history, even very brilliant politicians who had achieved a lot ended up doing things they thought were going to help them, but actually ended up finishing them completely. Brilliant politicians in the past, better politicians than our current president, indeed politicians who used to take advice. Unlike our current head of state, he has a reputation for not listening to advice, for knowing it all. And so ask yourself, if these very brilliant politicians from the past who used to take advice ended up making fatal mistakes, what about a leader who is less brilliant and who does not take advice? What do you think is the inevitable thing that will happen to them? Answer that question for yourself. But let me give you that example from Kenya's past to illustrate what I'm saying. A politician who is brilliant but ends up making a mistake while doing something they think will help them a great deal. And that mistake turns out to be fatal. In the last few months of the life of a man called Tom Mboya, founding father of the nation, brilliant, patriotic Kenyan who will never be forgotten, he teamed up with his rivals in State House to finish his arch political rival, Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, once and for all. And Jaramogi Oginga Odinga and Kenyans at the time were sure that all these political attacks were coming from Mboya, not knowing that they were fully sponsored by State House. With the benefit of hindsight, what Tom Mboya would have done in this instance is to close ranks with Jaramogi, to fully support him. Instead of finishing him politically, Mboya should have sided very closely with Jaramogi Oginga Odinga. Why? Very simple. What State House were doing was an operation, which included an intelligence operation, to completely remove all threats to the presidency of Mzee Jomo Kenyatta. And the strategy was very simple. Use Mboya to finish Jaramogi and then take care of Mboya. Professor David Goldsworthy, in his classic biographical book on Mboya, titled Mboya, the Man Kenya Wanted to Forget, puts it very clearly in that book. He says, and I am paraphrasing, he said, Mboya enthusiastically took part in finishing Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, not realizing that as long as Jaramogi remained in play in Kenyan politics, Mboya was safe, because Jomo Kenyatta cronies would have to deal with Jaramogi and then deal with Mboya. But when Mboya had very successfully and clinically taken care of Jaramogi, the poor man did not realize that now he had exposed himself. He was the only threat left standing. And therefore what happened? He got assassinated. And of course that story has never made me reduce my respect and admiration for this great Kenyan called Tom Mboya. However, my dear friends, always remember that politics is so complex that you can do something that you think is helping yourself, like finishing off Jaramogi, not knowing that you're setting the stage for you to be finished completely. Okay? Now, in a previous video, we discussed at length why not opening the servers can be a very fatal mistake for the UDA government, because of the mood in the country, because people are fed up. It could be the trigger, the final trigger that causes mass revolt amongst the people of Kenya against this government. But that is not the reason why the government is worried. The government is worried because there was a deal with powerful forces that the NADCO report would happen, number one, and number two, that the NADCO report would be implemented in full. That was the deal. And now all of a sudden, contrary to this agreement that was made, it seems that UDA want to renege and frustrate the NADCO report. This is what is making the government sweat. And if you think it is a small matter, remember that some of the deals done with these powerful forces involve finances. Finances that are keeping the limping Kenyan economy afloat. Think about it for a minute. That is how serious it is. In other words, somebody can say, zile chapa niliwapatia, sasa nazichukua. Itabidi ujisort. You know, I would not like to be in the shoes of this clever sycophant who wanted to get ahead and therefore decided to take this thing to court. I would not like to be in their shoes right now. And I'm sure you know exactly what I mean. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.